All right, want to do a quick one today, talk about one specific piece of perspective casting that I find very interesting. And this is a character who everyone's been talking about for a while, so much so that I did a fan casting video about this character and I mentioned this actor, but I didn't really go into too much detail, so I want to talk about them here. Here's what happened. This week, Glenn Howerton, Dennis from It's Always Sunny, shared a post of himself as Lex Luthor that someone else had mocked up on, I think, Instagram, where it's Lex in the war suit and just like kind of from the chest up. And I think the post even had a phrase on like, wow, or cool, or something like that. Then James Gunn began following, or people realized had always been following, Glenn Howerton on Instagram. Now that's one of those things that means nothing until it does, right? Like, it doesn't mean that Glenn Howerton is followed by James Gunn because James Gunn has already decided Glenn Howerton is going to be the Lex Luthor of those movies, right? But at the same time, if Glenn Howerton is the Lex Luthor of those movies, then James Gunn would follow him on Instagram or whatever. Like, I'm not saying that proves it necessarily, but it's like a nice little step in its favor. Glenn Howerton has been on a lot of people's radars as a couple of characters. Obviously, very importantly, Glenn Howerton was one of the actors who was apparently very close for Star-Lord, obviously lost to Chris Pratt, but that's a movie created by James Gunn, which means James Gunn has an interest in Glenn Howerton. He's been on his radar before. And I think Glenn Howerton, over the last couple of years, has sort of raised his profile, or at least shown, like a lot of these guys in Sunny have, that they can do more than just It's Always Sunny. Not to say that It's Always Sunny is not doing a lot. I love that show, and I think it's fantastic in it. But really, for Dennis, it's his role in the Blackberry movie, where he played the co-CEO of Research in Motion. See, we always knew, and as someone who has always been a humongous Always Sunny fan, we always knew part of the deal with Dennis was that he was obsessive, and there was like this running gag that he was probably maybe a serial killer who would talk about his tools or talk about all of these ways he would kill a person actually, and they would always be too detailed. I want to say they've completely dropped that, but that isn't something I would say that's like defining his character now the same way that it was when this started. I would say right now, the thing that keeps coming up with Dennis is that he is getting older, but he is not taking it well. They're all getting older. Obviously, they're all aging at the same rate. But like, because Dennis did believe that he was the hot, hunky, fresh face of the bar, he cannot take the fact that time is marching on. So a lot of the Dennis episodes, or at least episodes that Dennis is a big part of, have Dennis going up against some form of change and then reacting really poorly to it. The last episode of this season was Dennis going and kind of bumping into a lot of our weird little modern things, like, oh, you have to have an app to open your phone, or you need an app to do this or that, and just getting angry at all of them. Either way, he used to be a serial killer, and he's always kind of smart. We've always known that Glenn Howerton is close to the lead of this show, and it's very much an ensemble show. But like, he always felt like the one that you could spin off as a Star-Lord, right? Like, he was always just one of those roles away from being that guy. Not necessarily like, you know, Hollywood mega hunk Chris Pratt, but like a guy, like a big actor who everyone takes seriously. Kind of like Jennifer Aniston on Friends, where it's like, oh, after that role, yeah, he big, humongous star. Also, my hair is so puffy today. I just got a cut recently, and I don't know what's going on. Yeah, you know what? Glenn Howerton, more than anybody else in the group, believes he is the smartest member of the group and the voice of reason. And sometimes he's able to prove that, but sometimes he's not. And I'm only going through all of his character moves just because I want to highlight a lot of those things people said. A, map really well to Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, and B, map pretty well to Lex Luthor, right? Like, ego, this sense that he is the leader, this sense that he is the smartest, this sense that maybe there's another force that he just cannot handle. Like, he is always pushing up against the fact that he is aging the same way that Lex is always pushing up against the fact that he is inferior to Superman, who is sometimes viewed as this new young thing, right? That's kind of a stretch. But this idea of Dennis being very planted, very like strong, and like, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing. And every time something kind of pushes against that, it gets really, really frustrates him, makes him really angry. That's very Luthor, and that's very Reed. So after all of those rumors came out, I really sat down and was like, is Dennis a good pick for Luthor? Now, I think one of the things, and I'm going to say Dennis, I mean Glenn Howerton. One of the things that's changed my mind on this over the last couple of months is I watched Blackberry, and I've seen him do a character that is not quite this. He's bald and he's an angry CEO, but he's more kind of unhinged. He's got I would say he's a little bit more manic than I would want my Luthor personally. I would want it to seem like my Luthor knew what he was doing until the very end, right? Like, he's got a plan and it is playing out, and he is, meeting Superman with a drink and saying like, oh, what's going on, Superman? I have no idea what you're talking about, right? Like, he's got to be doing that. And this CEO from the Blackberry movie is always turned up to 11. He's yelling at everybody, but also he clearly doesn't have the kind of handle that he's pretending he has on everything. So like, I don't think it's quite a one-to-one, but it is a very similar role, and like, it has a lot of the fundamentals you would need for a good Luthor. And I do think, especially in recent seasons of Always Sunny, Glenn Howerton is perfect. He's a really good actor. They have taken these characters in such interesting places that I don't know. I think this could work. Like, do I think it's the most likely choice right now? I don't know. I mean, we really have very little information about what they're looking for a Luthor, but like, I think Glenn Howerton would be a pretty awesome Luthor. He's also just very smart, right? Wrote, produced, directed, I guess probably some of Always Sunny. Like, I am always interested in getting people in front of the camera that understand behind the camera, getting people that, are getting a smaller part than being the, full creative head of something like Always Sunny. But like, I think giving an actor like that who has a really strong idea of how a writer's room runs well and what an actor is expected to do and how an actor's supposed to work with a director and producers and writers and stuff like that, I always think that's really valuable. Yeah, so all I'm saying, I don't think this is likely. I'm not predicting this, although if I had to pick somebody, I mean, I guess I'd pick him because there's nobody else that really makes sense. Like, I don't know, maybe Nicholas Hoult, but who knows with him? I don't know. I think Glenn Howerton would be a pretty cool Lex Luthor, and I think we'd be lucky to have him. And I tweeted about this, like what the Luthor system would look like. Is it like an Always Sunny DC mashup? I've done a couple of those because I love Sunny and love DC Comics. And if you want to, I'll put the links to my Twitter. But like, just, I don't know. I just think those worlds collide. I think Always Sunny is in a place that maybe Seinfeld was in, where you really could just plop those characters into any world and get something interesting out of it because of how fundamentally relatable these characters are and how much they have such terrible qualities. They're also insecure or, aggressive. They misunderstand things. They think they're really smart. So like, that just works really well with, all of these worlds where something really weird is happening. It's like, how would they react to the gods and Shazam and stuff like that? Anyway, that's all to say. I would love it if, David F. Sandberg ever saw that, because I think it's pretty fun. The fake Always Sunny Shazam 2 script I did. But anyway, all I'm saying is, I think Glenn Howerton might be an excellent Lex Luthor. I don't love him for it, but I think he could be a good read. It seems like he's older than what they're going for, especially with Vanessa Kirby. But yeah, screw it. Let's do Glenn Howerton, Lex Luthor. I think it's a cool pick. James Gunn clearly knows what he's doing. And yeah, I think once the writers and actors strikes are over, hopefully they'll be over soon and settled in a way that's fair and helps the writers and actors, get a better handle on this industry. But like, I think once that ends, we'll start hearing a lot more information about some of these projects where people have been cast, but they kind of probably wanted to pepper some of that out, or at least like things have been going on behind the scenes that they can't talk about. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it.